Right, this evening's tire, as you have heard, is Paul Fevrier. Fevrier. How do you pronounce your surname again?
Fevrier.
Fevrier.
Yes.
No, Fevrier.
Fevrier, yeah.
He's South African French.
I do not have a drop of French blood in me. We are Swiss. Thank you very much.
But I've seen you drink wine. Yes, you drink it like a Frenchman. I'll tell you that. Yes.
Genetic throwback.
The hooks came from Stealth. The materials came from the Guild, except for we've got little foam pads, which
little discs.
Paul has kindly donated. And he's going to be tying a pattern called Rana, R-A-N-A.
Rana frog.
So, Paul, it's all yours.
Great. All right, just before I start tying it, I just want to give you a bit of background to this fly. The technique that I'm using to tie this fly involves using foam discs, and it's by no means a new technique. I actually spotted it on the internet quite some while back, and it's quite interesting. You tie in these overlapping discs so that you get the shape that you want. And a friend of mine had asked me to tie him some frog flies, but the frog flies he had the Walker's killer feather over the top, and they lasted like 10 minutes. Sometimes they didn't even catch a fish and the feathers fell off them, so they weren't terribly durable. And he said he's looking for something durable. And then it dawned on me, hey, why can't we use these foam discs to tie up the flies, which I duly did. And he went off to Whiskey Creek, and I gave him two versions of it. I gave him an unweighted version, which floats very nicely, and I gave him one that had a small lead keel in the bottom, which was 3/0 lead, just bent over, so it was double, probably about 9 millimeters long, tied in the bottom of the hook. And once the fly gets wet, it sinks very, very slowly. So you can use it on a floating line, you can use it on an intermediate line, but the biggest success he had was using a sink tip line with a short leader and the floating variety. So the sink tip actually pulled the fly under the water, and when it got about 1.5 feet under the water, apparently these trout hammered it. So it seems to be a pattern that works. So I thought to myself, when Herman phoned me, I thought, okay, well, I didn't know what fly to tie, but this is a good idea, and you can use this technique to tie bass bugs by punching out bigger discs of thicker foam. And you can lay three discs close to each other with the tail of whatever you want, marabou and rubber legs and goodness knows what else. And then what's nice is you can paint some eyes on it, and they actually look pretty cute. So I think without much ado, I'm going to start tying it. It's actually not a hard fly to tie at all. The ingredients for tonight's fly are rubber legs for the back, then hare's ear dubbing. If you want to, if you want to put a bit more glitz into the fly, you can use something like Diamond Bright or the SLF dubbing to give it a bit more color underneath. Then we've got the foam discs, and then because of the prevalence of Rana frogs at Whiskey Creek where he was going, what I do to get that yellow stripe down it, in front of each disc I tie in a yellow goose bite, and that just gives that nice yellow line to it. The fly itself then has got, I put eyes onto the thing by painting them on with nail varnish. You go to the chemist, you get yourself a couple of cheap bottles of nail varnish, yellow and black, and perhaps a white as well for other things. And what's nice about that is you can put that on in half an hour, that's dry, and then you can put the black dots on for the pupils, and that takes another half an hour, and that's dry. Instead of putting enamel on, you've got to wait overnight for the stuff to dry. And once it's on that foam, it doesn't come off. But for tonight, we haven't got the eyes. We don't have the time for it. But for purposes of the demonstration, I've found a couple of little 3 mil like sort of doll's eyes type things. So I'm going to stick them on so you can actually see what the fly looks like when it's got the eyes on it. All right. I'm using a size 10 hook here. It's a TMC 3761 with a slightly longer shank. Hang on, I need my glasses here. Sorry. If I don't have my glasses, then I might end up tying, I don't know, Muddler Minnow or something, who knows. Maybe even a Crazy Charlie. Okay. And also bear in mind you can use different color foam. You could use black, which I think would be quite nice, or brown, or whatever foam you can get. And the foam that I'm using, that I've punched the discs out for tonight, is 1 mil foam. So that'll work a treat. I'm starting the thread at the front of the fly so that I can just lay down a nice thread base. I think tying on a thread base is always a good idea. You're not going to get as much slip. And I'm taking the thread back. If I let it hang down, it's just behind the point of the hook. Okay.
That's it, Johnny.
Great. Okay. For the legs, I'm using this round rubber. The silly legs are okay to use, but if you're going to use the silly legs that have got the glitter in them, where the glitter is in the legs, it actually creates a weak point in the rubber. And as you're tying the knot in it, they tend to break. So I'm just using this normal olive round rubber. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a knot in it. Sorry, I don't know if you can see so lacquer there.
Can't see anything.
Okay, and now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so put it around, stretch it around my finger there, pop it off, put the loop behind there, and then I just use the scissors to pull it through. There we go. And then I just tighten the knot like that. Don't overstretch it. And then what I do, can you see it there?
Yeah.
I just cut it off like that, and it leaves me 2 little feet there. Okay? And I'm going to give myself about 1 inch here, and then I'm going to cut it off. And I'm going to make 2 of those. So, for purposes of the camera, you can see there, got a little leg there with 2. There we go, with 2 feet. Okay, and I'm going to make another one here, so that I've got 2 of these. Hang on.
Can you buy them pre-tied?
No, but I'm prepared to slave for money, eh? Okay. So there I've got another one. Cut it off there. Give myself a bit of room there. And cut those off. Okay. And these are the first things that I'm going to tie in. Okay. It's not too important how they lie at the back there. And in fact, when a frog is swimming through the water, after stroke, the legs are pretty close together, stretched out behind it, and that's sort of the effect that you're looking for. So I'm going to tie it in sort of like that. Okay?
On the side or on the top?
On the side. Okay? And I start off just by putting 2 sort of loosish turns there, so that I can now line it up, and there we go. Okay? You'll find it tries to move, you see it's tried to move over to the top. Yeah. Just bend it back around to where it was. Okay? Bumps. And there you go. Don't use too many turns, because the thread, when you tie in the rubber legs, actually grips the rubber legs very tightly. And you find that with a few turns, you'll actually tie it in pretty solidly. And it won't move. Okay, so now I've got that one there with 3 turns. Oops. And there they sit there. What I can do is at this point in time, I can actually just pull them a little bit so that I get them to sort of more or less the right length.
Just rotate the base. Just rotate the base.
So we have a top view, yeah. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. So the frog's legs are now tied in there. And I'm just going to give it a couple more turns. I might have to just realign them here a little bit again. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clip off the tag ends here. You can see there, and then there, and there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab them so they don't move, and I'm just going to tie down these tag ends. Okay, and you can see they're tied in nicely. There's not a huge bulk of thread there. Okay, just take the thread back to where the legs are tied in, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a bit of olive dubbing, and I'm going to, let me just get this out here.
Super glue that?
Hmm?
Would you super glue that at this time?
Oh, you can if you want to. It's not really necessary, but if you want to, yeah, you can. Okay, I'm going to take some dubbing now, and I'm going to create a dubbing thread, a dubbing noodle, and I'm not going to put it on terribly thick. I don't, even if you're going to create quite a bulky body, if you put the dubbing on nice and thinly, it gives you a lot of control over that dubbing, and it allows you to construct a very nice, either tapered or segmented body. If you put on a big clump, then it just goes on in a big ball, and it's sort of shapeless. So you can see there. Can you see there? Okay, I've got the dubbing loop on there. And I'm going to give it about, well, I've given it about 4 millimeters there, and I've just covered the thread that I used to tie in the legs. Now, the next step is to tie in the first disc. Okay, and here the discs are here.
The diameter are they?
This is an 8mm diameter disc, and I found it very nice for the size 10 hook. And what you're going to do here is you're going to just place it on top of the hook like that. Squash it at the front, and then hold it down like this. So you can see. I don't know if you can see there. Yeah. I've got it pinched between my hand, and then I'm just going to catch the foam disc with the thread. So now I have that. Okay. And at this point in time, the rubber legs might want to make a bid for freedom or a bid for another dimension. Yeah. So you just got to make sure that they stay reasonably aligned. But that's fine. Okay. Now I'm just going to move the thread back up to the base of the disc that I've just tied in there, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the yellow goose bite. Okay, and if you have a look at the goose bite, if you have a look at it there, you'll see it sort of tilts down one way like this. So you want to just tie it in that way. You don't want to tie it in that way because this is already going to stand up a little bit. Okay, so you don't want it to stand up any more than it has to do. And I'm going to lay it on top of the hook like that. Okay, holding it like that, and I'm going to trap it. And I've used 6 turns there. You see now it stands up like that. Don't worry, the next disc is actually going to flatten it, and then I just break it off there. Okay. At this point in time, just make sure that it's reasonably straight. Okay. And now I'm going to grab some more dubbing, and I'm going to dub another little section. Now, the trick here is to space the discs. There'll only be space for 3 discs on here, but space the discs so that they are evenly spaced here, and that the last disc you tie in on the front of the hook. Okay, so that there, you probably find here with these discs it's probably about 3 or 4 mils, but we'll see how it goes. So let's just grab a little bit more dubbing. Might need a bit more than this, but
see how easy it is to dub if you put small on.
Yeah.
Put a big clump on you and you battle like hell.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, if you feel you've got too much dubbing on there, reduce it by half at least, and then you'll be in the ballpark. Okay, and now I'm going to add a bit more here. I'm going to need a little bit more. Let's see. How are we doing there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just, there we go.
Okay, I Paul.
Okay. Let's just grab the dubbing like this. Okay. Pop on a bit more here. There's a lot of repetition in tying this fly. It's basically dubbing, disc, bight. Dubbing, disc, bight, and so you go. Okay, there we've got some more dubbing over there. And as you can see underneath here, can you see underneath the fly there? You've sort of got a continuous body over there. It just makes it look a little bit better. Because actually you could tie it without any dubbing whatsoever. It just wouldn't look so nice. Now, next disc. And we repeat this process over here now, where we grab the disc and we put it over the fly like that, and we pinch it down. And can you see here the gap that I've left here now? I think it's probably about 4 millimeters. Can you see it there in front of my finger? Right. So we do the same thing again. Right, and now we've got another little disc. Just do a bit of physiotherapy on its legs here. There we go. Okay, and another bite. Come hither. Alright, there we go. So you can see we've now got a little line developing there. If the tag end doesn't want to come off, just don't force it, just cut it off. Okay, now I want to put some front legs on this frog. So I'm going to take another length of rubber here, okay, and I'm going to tie it in, and the length of the front legs is going to be from there to the end of the back disc. Okay, that's a good measurement, and I'm going to tie it in this side here like this. I'm going to pull it all straight, and you see there you've got a leg that, well, you won't be able to see that one. But what I'm going to do is don't tie in one on either side, just use one, and then once this is tied in, stretch it across to the other side, and then just tie it in. Okay. There we go. And what I like doing here is when I cut this off, I cut it off longer, I cut that one off longer than that one, so that I can now look at it and say, okay, oopsie daisy, okay, how much more space, how much shorter do I need to cut? And then I can just cut it as I see fit till I get the right length. And that's about fine like that. Okay, it's just to give it sort of the right proportions. The first ones I tied, I didn't even put front legs in there because I thought to myself, no, you know, when it swims, it's got its like feet, its front legs sort of at its side there, so that it can be nice and streamlined. But I thought, nah, that looks more frog-like. And then we just repeat the dubbing. Hold back the legs. Well, we put this over here like that. Pull the legs more or less straight. A little bit more dubbing. Okay, and then the last bit of dubbing over here.
You could change that colour to cream, light brown, and it could be a cricket.
Oh yeah. You know, I think this technique of tying flies you could apply to virtually anything. And what's nice about it is that the foam is a lot more durable than the feathers. Yeah, you could tie a mouse with it. Okay, so now what we have here is we have one more section left to go and one more bite to put in. So we repeat the process again. Place another thing, and you see my spacing's been quite good because you see where this disc ends? It's virtually over the top of the eye of the hook. So now squash that down there like that. Catch it, and now I have another disc in place, and I take my last bite, place it on top, tie it in. Off, and now I'm just going to create a nice little thread head there. There we go, and just finish the fly off. Okay, so that's what it looks like now. Now at the moment it looks like a rhinoceros beetle. Okay. Hey, maybe, do you think try to eat rhinoceros beetles? I think it would be quite a battle, though. Okay, what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm just going to put a small drop of head varnish on the head here. Right, that's good enough. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some super glue. I've virtually given up using normal super glue. I use the Patek Super Gel. Here we go. I tell you what, this stuff is absolutely terrific. It doesn't
run.
Yeah, it doesn't run. And you take a little bit on the end here, and you just stroke it down underneath here like that, and then you push. Okay, it doesn't come out overly straight, but anyway, you just push that down, and now it is no longer a rhinoceros beetle. Isn't it? Okay. Now the fly in effect is finished. What I do now is I paint the eyes on, okay, with yellow varnish, a yellow nail varnish, one dot on either side there. Once that is dry, I put a black pupil on, and the best way to do it is with a toothpick. But you take that toothpick and you cut the point off it first 2 millimeters or so it's not pointed like this. It's actually comes down like it's flat. So when you dip it into the nail varnish, the drop forms at the end of the toothpick, and then all you do is you just put it on there, blop. And you get you put quite a lot of nail varnish on, and it forms like a dome almost. Yeah. Okay, but once it's dry, it's perfect. And then you do the same with the black nail varnish, so that you get the pupil. And with a little bit of practice, you know, you'll be able to put a beautifully nice round eye on them. And if you take and you put them like really close to each other, when you put the black dots on it, it looks like you got a retard frog. Its eyes look so close together. But anyway, for purposes of this, once again, I now have, I brought with me a couple of like really small eyes, which I'm going to attempt to glue onto here. Can you see them? These are really, really small. So I'm going to stick one that side, and I'm going to stick one that side. They are actually a bit oversized, but should be interesting to see what it looks like when it's finished. And that's the last step to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Are those dice, Paul?
Yeah, they are.
You're going to make a nice key son as well.
Yeah. These ones here I got. You must go to Showbiz at Cresta.
You got it that small?
Yeah, these are 3mm ones.
Yes.
And when I bought them, I actually ended up giving most of them away, and this is virtually what I got left, but I'm going to go get another lot. 100 of these things, R9.95. And they've got them in like 4 or 5 different sizes.
Yes.
Oh, you were talking about weighting it. Where would you weight it?
Oh, if you're going to weight it, before you tie any of the legs in or anything, you stick that keel of lead, that doubled over 3/0 lead, you stick it on underneath here. Okay? And what you do is you put your thread base down like you were going to start the fly, then give the lead a couple of turns of thread just to hold it there, and then maneuver it into place, because it's a very small piece of lead. And in fact, what I found is one of the easiest ways to do it is actually tied in on the top of the hook first, okay, with a couple of turns, but so it can still move. And once it's tied in, then just just flip it over so it now sits underneath the hook, and then you can give it a couple of turns of thread to lock it in place, and then you just tie over it as you would in the normal course. Okay, so now right. And when it comes to tweezers, do yourself a favor and get yourself a pair of these medical forceps. Whoa. Ish.
I don't think they'll last long with the casting.
Nah, I don't think so either. But
Paul, could you use acrylic and then just coat that with a seal skin or I don't know.
yeah, I suppose you could.
Got to get
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, and it's stuck there.
Come it round again. That's it.
It's awesome. Yeah, excellent.
So there's the little frog. And I think with these eyes, even though they're so small, it'll probably add a little bit of extra buoyancy to it. And let me tell you, this frog fly like this in this format, it floats beautifully. So it will hold up like a nice nymph or something underneath it. So you could pop it along the surface, because another thing that'll eat this thing, I'm sure of it, is a bass. A bass will guzzle this thing like a ripe mealy. So there's the frog.
Happy?